On Bill Maher's show on Friday, he was mourning democracy, said he would try to avoid crying, and even said, "I don't feel like voting matters." And I gotta agree, Bill Maher. Yes, the recent news of the Democrats cheating to allow Michael Bloomberg into the debate by changing the rules, even though they kept out Tulsi and Yang and Booker, and, they essentially rejected calls, and Yang, they rejected calls to change the rules to allow them to debate. Instead, the billionaire who gave them hundreds of thousands of dollars is allowed into. I agree, Bill Maher. I don't know if voting really matters. What's that? Bill Maher wasn't talking about the Democrats cheating? Bill Maher was talking about the Republicans throwing out the impeachment? Is that it? So you mean to tell me you mourn democracy when elected officials say there's not enough evidence to remove the president, and the Schiff has already claimed he's proven his case, so why call witnesses, and rejected an argument from the Democrats? And not only that, but where were you about democracy when the House Democrats rejected Republican witnesses in the first place? Now listen, personally, I think the Republicans should have called witnesses. You know why? If they want to make claims about Hunter Biden and whoever else, then they could call them as witnesses. But apparently they didn't want to do it. They wanted to shut it down. So I'll tell you this. The Republicans deserve to win this one on the facts. I think it's fair to say the Democrats have been cheating nonstop in the election process and in impeachment, the way they withheld witnesses from the Republican side and then cried when the Republicans wouldn't give it back. But in reality, there's no evidence of Trump's motive. And I think the Republicans had this one. I do think, however, if they want to make continued accusations, they should have called witnesses. Now, Lindsey Graham and other Republicans said this is not the venue, so at least they have that argument. Fine. In the end, I'm not going to cry because a Republican Senate rejected a partisan impeachment that everyone considers partisan and was so bad, in fact, they actually lost a member of the Democratic Party in Congress. I don't think the Republicans are the problem for the most part. But this is what Bill Maher is crying about. And I got to be honest, I didn't really care to talk about Bill Maher freaking out. And I am a fan of Bill Maher. I'm throwing some shade his way right now. Everybody deserves a pie in the face every so often. Bill Maher has been good on a lot of issues, and I got another story for him. I'm going to give him some respect. But this was too much. And he's got a really serious case of Trump derangement syndrome. And you know what? If he didn't have that, he'd have nothing in common with any of these Democrats or his audience anymore. The only thing they share is Orange Man bad. He even put a congressman on the spot about Elizabeth Warren's statements on trans kids. And you could tell she was really uncomfortable. Like, what am I going to say now? Bill Maher is calling me out. So here's the real story. Yeah, Bill Maher, you're upset that Republicans don't want to hear from Democrats' partisan witnesses, whatever. Listen, they wanted to call Bolton because the New York Times said people familiar with Bolton's manuscript claim Bolton claims something. Okay, you know what? They should have called witnesses, but come on, chill out. Democracy is not dead simply because elected representatives said no to your impeachment, okay? I'll tell you why democracy is really dead. The DNC's move to accommodate Bloomberg stirs outrage in Iowa. Candidates, members of Congress, and activists are outraged over debate rule changes that bow to a billionaire. That's the real issue. And I know I've talked about this, but I really wanted to highlight Bill Maher's selective outrage. Here's what he says. I don't know if voting matters, the comedian said at one point during Friday night's edition of Real Time with Bill Maher. Maher also described the Senate's cynical move as a finish line moment for the American experiment that began in 1776, saying, I feel like anything we talk about tonight is almost moot. We're going to talk about politics in Iowa and who's going to win. And I feel like we're talking about a world that doesn't exist anymore. We're in a post-democracy world. This is funny. Maher had already opened the show with a downbeat welcome. He said the impeachment trial is almost over, the bad, so is rule of law in America. I think it's funny that he would say, we're going to pay attention to Iowa, the caucuses coming. What is it, tomorrow? And he's not talking about the fact the DNC is overtly cheating. Even, look, Michael Moore went nuts. People are making fun of Michael Moore for freaking out over what they did for Michael Bloomberg. Yeah, you want to talk about why voting doesn't matter? You want to talk about why Iowa doesn't matter and why this world doesn't exist anymore? It's simple. The Democratic establishment has been cheating for a long time, and everyone knows it. They cheated Bernie Sanders in 2016. Bernie Sanders, in my opinion, started pandering and playing a silly game to try and win in 2020, but they're still cheating. Tulsi Gabbard, Andrew Yang, Tom Steyer. Well, Tom Steyer was complaining, but Cory Booker. These are people who were kept out of debates, who asked for rule changes, and they gave it to the billionaire. But Bill Maher is seemingly upset. Let me tell you where it gets funny, because I did highlight this in my main segment video. Here we go. Bill Kristol comes out of the political closet. Bill Kristol, I guess he's technically a conservative, but he's not because now he's temporarily a Democrat. And he said something I find truly laughable. Now, the stories from the Daily Wire, we can see Bill Kristol's tweets. He said, "Not presumably forever, not perhaps for a day after November 3rd, 2020, not on every issue or in every way until then, but for the time being, one has to say we are all Democrats now." Are you joking? After they just cheated to allow a billionaire into the race? You're nuts. Isn't it hilarious how the Democratic Party has become the party of kowtowing to billionaires and neoconservatives? Think about the people who are never Trumpers and what party they're going to. Think about how they loved and jumped up and down dancing in defense of John Bolton, one of the most notorious warmongers of our generation, or the past generation, or whatever generation he was in, of our time. That's who they're cheering for? It's really, really weird. Now I get it. Bernie Sanders and the populist left are fighting for the soul of that party. I think their policies are nuts. But the whole thing is just collapsing as far as I'm concerned. Bill Maher did say something interesting, which allows me now to say, no, we are not all Democrats. Now, look, I can look at the DNC's move to cheat and immediately reject Bill Kristol. We are all Democrats. Are you joking? Why? They're cheating. And the progressives are calling him out for cheating. Michael Moore is calling him out for cheating. Sorry, no, we're not all Democrats. You want to just, it's just the most disgusting. But on Bill Maher's show, he actually created another bit of controversy, which makes me kind of laugh. Not at the circumstances or the communities or anything involved. It makes me laugh that Bill Maher can't see what's happening around him. I know. People say the same thing about me, but crazy stuff. Bill Maher rips Warren vow to vet her education secretary using transgender child. The segment was actually funny for one reason, in my opinion. Nothing to do with the trans child or Warren. It was the fact that Bill Maher asked a congresswoman about the circumstance, and she seemed extremely uneasy and unwilling to engage. And that's because of how volatile the entire political landscape is, especially when dealing with trans issues. She was she looked to me like, uh-oh, how do I navigate this one? Am I going to come out against what Warren said and get the activists all over me and then lose elections? Let's read. Comedian Bill Maher blasted Elizabeth Warren's promise to have her nominee for Secretary of Education vetted by a transgender child is crazy. He said, "Now, Obama said people just don't want crazy stuff. Is this not crazy stuff? Is she running for president of Berkeley?" You know what I love? Because we'll read more. How simultaneously Bill Maher can make me laugh with a poignant position, but at the same time cry over the Republicans voting to get rid of a partisan impeachment when the Democrats were playing the exact same game. Oh, please, don't be silly, Bill. You got TDS and you got it bad. They say, Maher was referring to a comment Warren made last week, during which he said, "I'm going to have a Secretary of Education that this young trans person interviews on my behalf, and only if this person believes that our Secretary or Secretary of Education nominee is absolutely committed to creating a welcoming environment, a safe environment, and a full educational curriculum for everyone, will that person actually be advanced to be Secretary of Education." Warren was presumably referring to a 9-year-old transgender boy she spoke with in October during a CNN presidential forum. Maher has criticized Warren in the past and has made it clear that he identifies more with the Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. But here's what was really interesting. They jumped to, I think it was Rick Wilson, that former conservative, now Democrat guy, basically, who said, don't run on boutique issues in a Walmart country. And the point was, like Bill Maher said, is she running for president of Berkeley? Bill Kristol says we're all Democrats now. Fine. But think about what that means when you see what Elizabeth Warren is saying. Bill Maher said what you need to understand is there are two parties, and everything the left says goes in the blue bin. And that includes this. People will ask her about this if she wins the nomination. They will ask her, and what will she say? Because to the average person, they have no idea what she's talking about. And Bill Maher made an even better point. He said, I don't care about the trans thing. Why would you give a high schooler veto power over your cabinet? Good question. Because she doesn't mean it. Because they're lying. So you want to talk about the death of democracy? Let me go back, Bill. It's not about the Republicans saying no to an impeachment, no to removing the president, or not wanting to have witnesses come in. I do think it was dumb, but I'm not going to cry about it. It's a partisan game. Impeachment is a political process, as Nadler said himself. But I'll tell you what, when Warren just spews word vomit that means nothing to anybody in order to pander to an activist base to win, I say democracy is in trouble. When the DNC cheats and changes the rules now for the second election in a row, or I shouldn't say changes the rules second election in a row, but they cheat second election in a row, and they put a billionaire who just gave basically $1 million to establishment Democrat institutions, including some of which went to the DNC, I say democracy is in trouble. So when Bill says, I don't know, voting matters, you're right, Bill. The caucuses are tomorrow, starting with Iowa. And I don't know, voting matters. And based on the cheating so far I've seen, I'm extremely angry. You know why? There are two candidates I've been very, very excited by, Yang and Gabbard. And guess who they've cheated and then propped up? They cheated Yang and Gabbard out of debates, but they are cheating once again to get Bloomberg on the stage. Why should I play a game with you when you're cheating? How would you feel playing poker, watching them cheat? Wouldn't you just get up and walk away? Some people in the Wild West would have another reaction. In today's day and age, I just say, I'm not playing with you, man. You cheat. So they want me to come out and vote? I'm sorry. I'm not convinced voting matters, as Bill Maher said, but for all the wrong reasons. Stick around. Next segment's coming up in a few minutes, and I will see you all shortly.